Something huge is happening behind the scenes in Miami right now, and I honestly believe this could completely change the direction of the franchise moving forward. There are people inside the organization who truly believe the Dolphins are finally building a roster capable of competing with the NFL elite again, but at the same time, there are whispers that some very difficult decisions are coming next. One star just secured his future in Miami, another could be next, and one fan-favorite player may eventually become the shocking odd man out. And trust me, when you hear the full details, a lot of Dolphins fans are going to start debating whether John Eric Sullivan is quietly building the best Dolphins core we've seen in years. But before we get into all the drama surrounding Achane, Aaron Brewer, Jordan Brooks, and the future of this team, make sure you hit the like button if you still believe the Miami Dolphins can reach the Super Bowl in the next few seasons. And I want every optimistic Dolphins fan to comment this right now. Go Dolphins! The future is aqua and orange. Now let's get directly into it. The Dolphins gave Achane a 4-year extension worth up to $68 million with bonuses included, while the base value sits at $64 million. That puts him at roughly $16 million per season, making him one of the highest paid running backs in football. And honestly, this move sends a message across the entire NFL. Miami is officially telling everybody that Achane is not just another fast running back in Mike McDaniel's system. They view him as one of the foundational pillars of the franchise moving forward. Remember, when John Eric Sullivan first stepped into this role, he specifically identified Achane, Aaron Brewer, Jordan Brooks, and Patrick Paul as core building blocks for the future. Now one of those pillars has officially been secured long-term. What makes this situation fascinating is the guaranteed money. According to the information revealed, Achane received $32 million guaranteed. That is only about 50% of the contract guaranteed, which is actually much lower than many people expected considering the current running back market. And this is where things get very interesting. Because from Miami's perspective, this deal is extremely smart. The Dolphins reward their best offensive weapon with long-term financial security, but they also protect themselves in the future if injuries become a problem. Achane plays one of the most physically demanding positions in football, and despite his elite explosiveness, many analysts around the league still question whether a smaller running back can maintain this level of production over multiple seasons. Miami clearly thought about that while structuring this contract. That means the Dolphins are betting on greatness without completely trapping themselves financially if things go wrong later. And let's be honest here, Dolphins fans have seen enough injuries over the years to understand why that matters. But there's another layer to this story that nobody can ignore. This extension may have officially started a domino effect inside the organization. Because now every other key player is watching. Aaron Brewer is watching. Jordan Brooks is watching. Their agents are definitely watching. The report makes it very clear that Miami still views Aaron Brewer as one of the most important players on the roster, and there's growing belief that he could be next in line for a major extension. And honestly, Brewer might deserve it. Some people outside Miami don't realize how important he became to this offensive line. There are legitimate arguments that he is one of the best centers in football right now. His leadership, communication, and consistency completely stabilized the middle of this offensive line. And with younger linemen continuing to develop around him, keeping a veteran like Brewer becomes even more valuable. The report even suggests Brewer could push for something close to $19 or even $20 million per season if negotiations really heat up. That would become another massive investment by Sullivan. Then you have Jordan Brooks, another all-pro level player, another leader, another cornerstone piece. And this is where Miami fans might become divided. Because extending Achane is exciting. Extending Brewer makes sense. But can the Dolphins realistically pay everybody while still building a championship-level roster around them? That's the real question. The organization reportedly still has major salary cap flexibility heading into 2027, even after this Achane extension. But eventually difficult decisions are coming. Sullivan cannot keep every talented player forever. At some point, somebody gets sacrificed for the bigger picture. And now fans are beginning to wonder, who's truly untouchable in this new Dolphins era? Is Achane officially the centerpiece of the offense moving forward? Will Aaron Brewer become the next extension priority? Could Jordan Brooks eventually walk despite being one of the best linebackers in football? And maybe the biggest question of all, is John Eric Sullivan building this roster better than Chris Grier did? That debate is about to explode across the Dolphins fan base. The more you look at this situation, the more you realize the Dolphins may have just revealed their entire long-term strategy without directly saying it. Because this extension for Achane was never only about rewarding a talented running back. This was about identity. This was about leadership inside the locker room. And most importantly, this was about establishing who this franchise believes can carry them into the next era of Dolphins football. And fans need to pay attention to the timing of all this. Miami didn't wait until the season started. They didn't allow this to become a distraction during training camp. They moved aggressively before things could become messy. That tells me John Eric Sullivan wanted this situation completely handled so the organization could focus on winning football games instead of contract drama hanging over the locker room every single week. That matters more than people think. One thing that destroys teams during championship windows is uncertainty. When your best players are frustrated about contracts, it creates tension everywhere. But by extending Achane now, the Dolphins immediately send a signal to the entire roster. If you perform at an elite level and fit the vision of this organization, Miami will take care of you. And honestly, Achane earned this moment. Every time defenses tried to slow Miami down over the last 2 seasons, Achane was still the player capable of changing games with one touch. His explosiveness completely alters defensive game plans. Opposing coordinators have to account for him on every snap because he's dangerous both as a runner and receiver. That versatility is exactly why the Dolphins valued him so highly. But here's where things could become controversial among fans. Some people around the league still don't believe paying running backs big money is smart team building. We've seen multiple franchises regret major running back contracts over the years. Injuries happen fast at that position. Production can decline suddenly. And because Achane relies heavily on speed and explosiveness, there will always be concerns about durability long term. Miami clearly understands that risk. That's why the guaranteed money became such an important detail in this deal. The Dolphins gave Achane security, but they also protected the franchise from being completely trapped financially later on. If injuries eventually pile up or production declines during the later years of the contract, Miami still has flexibility. That is smart front office management. And whether fans want to admit it or not, this feels different from previous Dolphins regimes. John Eric Sullivan appears to be balancing aggression with caution at the same time. He's rewarding star players, but he's also avoiding contracts that could completely destroy the team financially years later. That's a difficult balance to maintain in the NFL. Now the spotlight shifts directly onto Aaron Brewer. And I truly believe his situation may become even more complicated than Achane's. Because while flashy offensive weapons get headlines, championship teams are usually built through dominance in the trenches. Brewer became one of the stabilizing forces of this entire offense. The communication he provides on the offensive line is crucial, especially with younger players continuing to develop around him. The report strongly hints that Miami understands his value internally. But the problem is this: elite centers are becoming incredibly expensive across the NFL. If Brewer asks for top-tier center money, the Dolphins will have another major financial decision staring them directly in the face. And then there's Jordan Brooks. This might be the most emotionally difficult decision for the fan base. Because Brooks brought intensity, leadership, toughness, and consistency to the defense. According to the report, Miami still views him as one of the core foundational players under Sullivan's vision. But linebacker contracts can also become risky once players approach their